So, great week of predictions. Let's start the show. Okay, let's go.
How quickly you try to dodge that one, man. It was more than a rough weekend for you. Social media, boy, we're having some fun with the mayor. Tell us a little bit about your weekend down in Texas, Frank.
Here, I'll show you via the way of tweets. How's that? We'll just go that way. First off, we started the evening with me tweeting out, will the HSU Cowboys dry spell against Crew football end tonight? We'll find out soon. Here are the Cowboys entering the field. To which Kyle King decided he would answer after the game, no. Okay, you know what? Fair enough. Good answer, Kyle. A lot of people like that one. We've got Bobby P deciding to go full crying Jordan on my body. So thanks, Bobby, for that one. During the game, Purple Gold and Getting Old had stated, hey, Frank Rossi, you seem to be our good luck charm. Would you think about coming out to every game if I could get a group of boosters to sponsor it? Haha. Okay, thanks. Thank you for that one. I did respond. You can go on Twitter and find that. And then Ty Crawford, again, winning the internet. I am so excited for this week's D3FB Huddle game day picks when Frank Rossi picks the Austin College Roos 0-3 over UMHB. Come on, Frank, don't let us down.
Oh, God. Eye roll. Nice.
The respect I get is phenomenal. But then to top it off, if you think the disrespect from folks down in Texas isn't bad enough, how about somebody that actually covers my college's teams deciding to diss my home village where I'm mayor of?
Yeah, James Prasio Jr. read the ball, came in, just wasn't tall enough to make the grab.
Local guy to the Schenectady area, Ballston Spa, New York, just up the road near Saratoga Springs. Although those are two rivals, so I guess I should. Saratoga County guy. Saratoga, the more well-known city nationally. Although I'll get some flack as running right as Fiore to the left side. Our former Union broadcaster and alum Frank Rossi, who now is the mayor of Ballston Spa, New York. So he would say Ballston Spa, Saratoga is near Ballston Spa. That's what he would say.
Okay, Andrew. As you can see from the added graphics onto that, Ballston Spa is more than Saratoga Springs' little stepchild to the south of it. We have a lot of stuff that makes us special and unique, as we just said in our New York Forward grant application for $2.25 million. Cross your fingers for us. But yeah, Ballston Spa is its own entity, its own municipality, and people love us just the same. You should know that. You live in the area. You've been to Ballston Spa. Yeah, you came through last year during Union's homecoming.
Place in a little downtown, very quaint. Lots of it's old architecture. It's very pretty.
Thank you. So, Andrew, poo on you. That's all I can say. It's been one of those great weeks where, I'm a walking meme, basically, for everybody's sake. I'm glad I could assist D3 Nation like that. Having said that, guess what? It's season 15, crunch time, in the huddle. Okay, JB, all kidding aside, we thought it was going to be a week of just 2 games, really, and then kind of the rest, but it didn't play out that way, realistically. So it's time for your 30,000-foot view. What did you think of Week 4?
Well, I think there was a lot of games in Week 4 that we thought were going to go one way, and they went the opposite. So it still seems a bit like of a crazy year, and one of the things that's really interesting to me, Frank, we'll talk about this when we go through the regions, there's such a lack of undefeated teams in at least a couple of different regions. It's going to make the seeding when the tournament comes around pretty interesting. There's only 6 undefeated teams in Region 1. 2 of them are in the MAC, 2 of them are in the NESCAC, so kind of do the math with the rest of New England there. And then in Region 3, there's 3 undefeated ODAC teams who took the weekend off. They were off, and then there's Trinity, who's cracking the top 5 now as the only undefeated team in the SAA. So we're seeing a lot of 1-loss, 2-loss teams still kind of in the conference championship playoff hunt, but there's going to be a lot less O's than we've seen in quite some time.
You starting to become a believer what I said about a 2-loss team being the last team chosen in Pool C?
I think there's going to be a couple of 2-loss teams to be chosen in Pool C, to be honest, just the way things are shaking out.
It's possible. I would say at least 1 for now, but 2 is definitely a possibility. So how do we get there? How do we get here at the end of the week, the day, whatever you want to call it? Well, let's talk about it. It's time for crunch time for week 4 of the 2022 Division III college football season. We will start, as we always do, in Region 1 as Hudson visited Springfield. And we had a hat trick in this game. Let me tell you about who did it. 5 minutes into the game, Springfield's Arsen Shatefan gets a 19-yard touchdown run to make it 7-0. They add a touchdown, but then 1:19 left first quarter. Arsen Shatefan with a 5-yard touchdown run to make it 21-0, Springfield leading. Midway through the second quarter, guess who scores again? Arsen Shatefan, a 26-yard touchdown run, gives his team a 28-0 lead. We don't want to leave out David Wells, and looking at his arm here, as in the third quarter, 9:08 left, Noah Wagenblast gets a 51-yard touchdown pass from David Wells. That made it 42-0. Final score, Springfield wins 49-7. They outgained Hudson 540-147. Rushed for 429 yards as a team, and Shatefan with those 3 rushing touchdowns. Let's go NESCAC word here, as Colby, who pulled off that big upset against Williams the previous week, took on Trinity. There was no scoring in the first half. 9:40 left third quarter. Colby's Matt Hirsch gets a 1-yard touchdown run to give Colby a 7-0 lead. But it was far from over, as 3 minutes later, Trinity's Thomas Walsh gets a 27-yard touchdown pass from Spencer Fetter. And that's now a 7-7 tie. 3:34 left third quarter. Tyler DiNapoli gets an 11-yard touchdown pass from Spencer Fetter to give Trinity the 13-7 lead. Kick failed on that. And Tyler DiNapoli gets a 2-yard touchdown run later on. That's in the fourth quarter, 13:22 left. And that would pretty much do it. 19-7, Trinity beats Colby. Trinity outgained Colby 387-162. Fetter 19 for 25, 229 in terms of yardage and 2 passing touchdowns. How about this Salve Regina at Rowan game? As we start 10-0 in favor of Rowan early. Second quarter, 1:08 left. John Maldonado gets a 50-yard touchdown pass from Mike Husney to make it 17-0 at halftime in favor of Rowan. It's over. It's done, right? Well, not between these two teams, because for the second straight year, we had a turnaround in this game. Salve would get a touchdown in the third on a short Ryan Jans run. In the fourth quarter, though, 13:07 left. It's Hayden Hulme getting a 13-yard touchdown pass from Jake Stack. It's now 17-14 Rowan. The ensuing kickoff, though, was disastrous for Rowan, as it was fumbled by that team and picked up by Jacob DuBois at the Rowan 24-yard line. 4 plays later, Evan LaRoche gives Salve Regina the lead, 21-17 with 10:47 left. John Maldonado would connect again, though, with Mike Husney later in the fourth with about 4 minutes left, so Rowan took the lead back, 24-21. We go with 30 seconds left, 4th and goal at the 7-yard line of Rowan, and here's the pass. It's incomplete. It's over. Rowan, well, wait a minute. No, there is a flag on the play, roughing the passer. They would get another chance at it, and Jake Stack would get a 3-yard touchdown run with 21 seconds left to give his team the win. Great 15-play drive to end the game, 28-24 in favor of Salve Regina. Rowan had led 17-0 at the half. Stack gets the game-winning 3-yard touchdown run with 21 seconds remaining. Then we've got to look at all the scoring by one player in particular in this wild Coast Guard at Anna Maria game. Spencer McMillian. He might have run for a McMillian yards and touchdowns in this game, as with 2:54 left first quarter, he gets first his 10-yard touchdown run. Then in the next quarter, about 16 minutes later officially, Spencer McMillian gets an 11-yard touchdown run. That's 28-14 in favor of Coast Guard at that point. In the third quarter, McMillian runs again, a 4-yard touchdown run, 45-21 in favor of Coast Guard. 2 minutes later, McMillian, a 2-yard touchdown run, 52-21 Coast Guard. 10:45 left, fourth quarter. Spencer McMillian, one more time. 3-yard touchdown run, 59-21. I haven't seen something like that in a long time in Region 1 especially, folks. As McMillian rushes 43 times for 285 yards, leads the nation in rushing yards right now. 5 rushing touchdowns. The teams combined for 1,130 total yards. The defensive Coast Guard, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery. Spencer McMillian, probably not the last time in this show you'll hear his name. JB, take it away.
And he's a senior too. Where did this guy come from? I mean, holy smokes! And he not only does he lead the nation in rushing yards, he's tied for the lead. I think he's got 11 rushing touchdowns in the first 4 games. It's incredible. What a performance! Elsewhere in Region 1, we saw a couple of blowouts. Delaware Valley's offense kind of got alive here and was off and running. We had some close, exciting games too. Kings comes up a little short against FDU Florham. Merchant Marine and Kane came down to a blocked punt safety by Cole Simmons, who I believe got named to the D3 Football Team of the Week. Alfred State outlasting Defiance, which some people thought may not happen. In the NESCAC, kind of what you'd expect. It looks like at this point Middlebury and Trinity are the only undefeated teams in that conference. It looks like it's going to come down to one of them. We'll have to wait and see on that. Stevenson still cruising right along there. They're undefeated and headed into a big showdown against Del Valle this weekend. We'll have more on that on Friday, assuming that I'm not waterlogged from Hurricane Ian. More on that in a bit. Lebanon Valley edges Wilkes, which is interesting. And Framingham State needed to kind of eke out a close one against Westfield. Interesting score there. And then the one game that you and I were texting about, WPI with their first win of the season, shutting out Montclair State, who went toe-to-toe with Del Valle.
Second win. They got the win against Worcester State to start the season.
Oh, that's right, Worcester State in week 1. Yeah, so they lost 2 in a row, I think is what I meant. And so here they are, back to 500 and beating a pretty solid Redhawks team from the NJAC. Absolutely.
Was very surprised by that performance. And hey, congratulations, Coach C-Rob and company, for turning things around there, because it's been a rough one. I was at the prior 2 games. Apparently, I'm the cause of WPI losing, because the 2 games I didn't attend.
You're like the antithesis of what all the crew fans are like. Frank, can you come to all our games because we win? WPI fans are like, Frank, please don't stay home. No, don't come to Worcester.
Yep, apparently. Great.
I'm sure Rusty Egan would still like to have you in the press box.
Another satisfied customer, I tell you. Anyway, Utica at Union we've got coming up here, and this was another one of those head-scratcher games, I guess. In the first quarter, Andre Ross Jr. gets a 31-yard touchdown pass from Donovan Piccatti to make it 7-0 in favor of Union. After Union added a field goal in the second quarter, 9:38 left, Utica's Travis Decker gets a 68-yard touchdown pass from Braden Zenilovich. The old U-Albany transfer makes it 10-7, still Union's lead. But a play later,
as Piccatti is in the pistol, he's going to hand it off. Running right is Irabor. He's got a big hole. IK Irabor, 30, 20, 10-5 touchdown. IK Irabor. And Union responds.
IK Irabor, 84-yard touchdown run, 6th longest touchdown run in Union history. With 9:19 left, he made it 17-7 in the second quarter. Then 20 seconds left second quarter, it is Michael Fiore with a 1-yard touchdown run, 24-7, Union leading. But on that drive, Donovan Piccatti went down with a shoulder injury of some sort. We're not sure what his prospects of coming back this season are. But we'll continue as Utica would get a touchdown and a field goal in the third quarter to pull within 7 suddenly. In the fourth quarter, it was the Nate Palmer show. It's first Nate Palmer with a 9-yard touchdown pass from Zenilovich to make it 24-24. It's tied. Then a minute 20 later, as Union went 3 and out, Nate Palmer, a 43-yard punt return for touchdown, he said, makes it 31-24 in favor of Utica. Then a chance for Union. It's broken up pretty much by the interception. Joey Lapani with the interception on a 3rd and 9 play pretty much ended any hopes there for Union. They had one more chance later, but just couldn't get the ball back after punting it away. So the final score, a 17-point comeback by Utica, 31-24 in favor of Utica. They moved to 4-0 this season, finding a way to win over and over again. Piccati, as we said, left the game with the injury. And Braden Zenilovich, 21 for 28, 274 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Let's also talk about Ursinus at Franklin and Marshall. And our guest from last week, that's Jack Pazinska. Gets a touchdown pass in this game to Nick Schnars, I believe. Maybe I need another pronunciation 101 on this one. 14-yard touchdown pass makes it 7-0 late in the first quarter. After adding a field goal, it looked like we'd hit halftime with a 10-0 Ursinus lead, but after a punt was fielded at the F&M 1, Aaron Rasco loses a yard as Connor Carter forces a team safety. That's 48 seconds left in the first half, 12-0, Ursinus with the lead. Then with no time on the clock, it's a touchdown pass. Justin Collier, an 8-yard catch for a 19-0 halftime lead. And, respectfully, that was it. The game was pretty much over because of that big turn of events at the end of that first half as Pazinska and company win it 22-7. 17 for 32, 168 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. So a little bit of sloppy play by him. But you did warn him last week that F&M were ball hawks on defense, but they still win the game by 15, as Ursinus' defense not bad themselves with 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 2 fumble recoveries. JB, Region 2, a little bit lighter this week than we've seen in previous weeks. It's about to change in that respect. Trust me, as we're going to get some big games over the next few weeks. But Region 2, take it away.
Yeah, so we saw pretty much a lot of lopsided games in Region 2, with the exception maybe of Alfred kind of upsetting Kalamazoo. And their running back had a big game, 274 yards, I believe it was Max Freeman the fourth. The X 1B after his name makes it really official. So he had a big game. Saxons had a big win against a good MIA team. So credit them. Hobart puts up 65 points. That's the second most in program history for them against Keystone. Winless program, but still Hobart is trying to gear up after that tough Week 2 loss, and they have a really big game Week 5 we'll talk about soon. Interesting down here, Frank, though, St. John Fisher beating RPI 3-0 in a really defensive struggle. That's kind of, that to me was the biggest sort of shocker of the weekend. Everything else, I mean, Morrisville State's now 4-0. They have a big game against Brockport this weekend, so we're going to see a lot of conference clashes coming up, but not so much, not so many surprises, but that RPI Fisher game is kind of a head scratcher to me, Frank.
Yeah, also thinking about the fact that 2 of the teams that are undefeated in the Empire 8 right now are Utica and Morrisville. Who would have thought that coming into the season? But hey, we got a lot of Empire 8 play yet to come. Next up, a public service announcement. Here are my thoughts on Texas weather. It's beautiful at 94 degrees and in the sun even worse down there. But hey, they had to play football pads on. Yeah, we'll just move along here and talk about the tussle in Texas. That's Mary Hardin-Baylor at Hardin-Simmons. And this game just had, it was 3 different games when you really get down to it. First, the first quarter, it was Noah Garcia with a 12-yard touchdown run to make it a 6-0 lead after the extra point was missed. Hardin-Simmons leading 4 minutes into the game. After 2 Anthony Avila field goals, we were tied at 6-6, though, after 1 quarter. Now, game number 2, let's call it, the start of the second quarter, which was shootout mode. As first, Kevy Evans gets a 43-yard touchdown pass from Galen Glynn to make it 13-6. Again, Hardin-Simmons lead. 2 minutes later, Jerry Day gets a 44-yard touchdown pass from Kyle King, tying up the game at 13 apiece with 12:26 left in the first half. A third Anthony Avila field goal would give Mary Hardin-Baylor their first lead with 5:33 left in the half. But this is where things would turn wild. Let's call it the third type of game we saw here. After first, Hardin-Simmons gets their 74-yard touchdown pass from Galen Glynn to Kevy Evans to make it 20-16, Hardin-Simmons lead. Again, 4:36 left. 3:42 left. First, actually, let's look at the kickoff return by KJ Miller to around the 3-yard line. and it looks like he did step out of bounds. When I slowed it down a few times, I caught finally where his foot did hit that out of bounds stripe, but they clean up the mess there, as they say, as Brandon Jordan gets a 4-yard touchdown pass from Kyle King. 22-20, Mary Hardin-Baylor leads with 3:42 left. 3:30 left. 12 seconds later, Johnny Smith-Ryder with a 15-yard scoop and score. Suddenly now, it's a 29-20 lead for Mary Hardin-Baylor. What happens 2 plays later? Well, Duran Hill does the exact same thing, except from 33 yards out. Scoop and score makes it 36-20. We went from 20-16 Hardin-Simmons to 36-20 Mary Hardin-Baylor in 1 minute and 40 seconds. I have never seen something like that transpire in a game like this. This ended up being pretty much it, as we had a 30-point second quarter for Mary Hardin-Baylor. The final score 50-20 UMHB. UMHB had 69 offensive plays to 51 for Hardin-Simmons. So look at that defense go this go around. They had 3 fumble recoveries, 2 for touchdown. Kyle King, 21 for 31, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns. Galen Glenn, 8 for 17, 154 yards, and 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. But just once they got knocked down, once those fumble recoveries for touchdown occurred, it was it. They, I guess, remembered what the previous 7 years were like, and I don't want to say they folded, but they certainly didn't have any resilience in the second half as a result. More on that in a second. Belhaven and Huntingdon had a pretty good game here for the back and forth nature of it. After an early Huntingdon touchdown, they take a large early lead with this Tyler England 72-yard punt return for touchdown. It made it 14-0 Huntingdon with 7:39 left first quarter. In the second quarter, Belhaven would respond first with a 1-yard Tim Johnson run, and then the Colby Blunt 11-yard touchdown run that Belhaven uses to tie the game at 14 apiece, 8 minutes left second quarter. 3:48 left second quarter, Huntingdon's Connor Bradford gets a 52-yard touchdown pass from Landon Cotney, and the halftime score would be 20-14 in favor of Huntingdon. Belhaven's Nigel Owens would get a 25-yard touchdown pass from Tim Johnson with 3:34 left third quarter, and everybody started to think this would be Belhaven's game as they took the lead 21-20, but it was not over as Huntingdon's Kahari McReynolds gets a 5-yard run of his own to get the lead back for Huntingdon, 27-21 with 22 seconds left third quarter. Finally, Huntingdon ends the scoring in this game with a Troy Garner 9-yard touchdown run to make it 34-21 Huntingdon with 6:40 left. That pretty much put it all away. Again, final score 34-21 Huntingdon. Landon Cotney 14 for 24, 266 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Colby Blunt, 22 rushes, 103 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. JB, Region 3, that game between Mary Hardin-Baylor and Hardin-Simmons was cardiac at times in that second quarter. Again, unlike anything I've been a part of in Division 3 football in 27 years of covering it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even keep up with all the updates you had coming because there was a touchdown here, a touchdown there. It's like, that game was crazy. And so it certainly lived up to the hype as one of the big games of the year. And once again, sort of establishes that the ASC runs through Dalton, Texas. And so the Crusaders are in the driver's seat now for a playoff spot. The rest of the conference, it was pretty competitive. If you see some of the other scores, Southwestern edged McMurray, and Sul Ross and Texas Lutheran had a pretty good game. ETBU lost to Howard Payne by 12 points. But elsewhere, the South was pretty quiet, Frank. Only one SAA team played. Birmingham Southern defeated Division II Point University by 20 points. And Huntington, man, they really kind of made a statement to me. That was a tale of 2 games, and I really feel that punt return touchdown gave them a little extra breathing room because in the second quarter, Belhaven's offensive line took control of that game. They were blowing the Hawks off the ball, but they never really had to panic because they had a 2-possession lead. So even when they tied the game, they got back in the driver's seat. Same thing in the second half. The Hawks look like the team to beat in the USA South.
We're going heavy on regions 4 through 6 compared to prior weeks. We got 4 games to summarize here, including the return of Rosti, as we're calling it. We weren't sure if he would be back, and in the end, he did come out and start in this game. 10 minutes into the game, though, it was St. John scoring first as Henry Trost gets a 2-yard touchdown run to give the Johnnies a 7-0 lead. 2 minutes later, it's Bryce Kunkel with a 45-yard touchdown run, 7-7. We were tied at this point. St. John's would add a field goal just before halftime to make it a 10-7 halftime lead. 12:15 left third quarter. Joey Kidder, 38-yard touchdown pass from Rosti. It's now 14-10 in favor of Bethel. St. John's, though, would respond about, 40 seconds later. Jimmy Buck with a 58-yard touchdown reception from Aaron Severson. It's 17-14 in favor of St. John's now. But in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes into it, Aaron Ellingson gets a 12-yard touchdown pass from Rosti. 21-17 in favor of Bethel now at that point. 4 minutes later at that point, Trost with his second touchdown run. It's 24-21 St. John's. But then one play later, literally 16 seconds later off the clock, Micah Newalt gets his 72-yard touchdown pass from Jaron Rosti. You think he's all about running? He's got an arm, folks. And it's 28-24 in favor of Bethel. 3rd and 4, Aaron Stevenson here with 6:53 left is intercepted by Isaac Call. So they had an opportunity on the next drive. And then later on in the fourth quarter, Severson again on a 3rd and 10 play. He's intercepted by Kamari Dumas of Bethel, and that would effectively end the game as Bethel could run out the clock. It's an upset. There's no other way to say it. Even with Rosti back, it's still an upset in a lot of people's minds. 28-24 in favor of Bethel. 6 lead changes in the game. Rosti went 19 for 29, 321 yards, and 3 passing touchdowns, just 1 interception. Henry Trost, 21 rushes, 105 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Wheaton at Augustana, not really a compelling matchup when you kind of look at it from afar, but it turned into one as we were tied at 14 midway through the second quarter. 10 minutes into that second quarter, Kyle Carter with a 40-yard touchdown run for Wheaton makes it 21-14. To start the third quarter, 5 minutes into it, Ben Bonga gets a touchdown pass from Will Bowers from 15 yards out to make it 28-14 Wheaton. Now Wheaton adds on one more time. They get an interception return for touchdown. 9 minutes later, this makes it 35-14 in favor of Wheaton. This game's over, right? Well, no. Augustana would try to rally back. Now they're down 14 going into this play. It's Ian Gorkin, 28 yards from Thomas Hall, 35-28 Augustana. But really, this field goal would put it away for Wheaton. 22-yard kick by Caleb Mary gives them a 38-28 lead with 1:48 left. That would do it. But boy, this was closer than it should have been in a lot of ways. 38-28, Wheaton wins. Wheaton's offense outgained Augustana 511 to 396. Giovanni Weeks with 36 rushes, 266 yards off those. Great day for him. If his name was McMillions, maybe he would have had another 20 yards. Who knows? And Wheaton's defense, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions. Next up, would somebody from the OAC like to step up and be the next team down from Mount Union with a chance at a playoff? Well, apparently not. Well, let's look at the game first here. John Carroll versus Heidelberg. Heidelberg and JCU were tied at 7 late in the first half. Then with 3:19 left in the second quarter, it's Tadas Tadarunas with a 5-yard touchdown pass from Joe Collins to make it 14-7 John Carroll. We go past halftime, 13 minutes past it, in fact. Brennan Fugue gets a 5-yard touchdown pass from Collins to make it 21-7 in favor of JCU. That was it. Heidelberg's offense just failed to kick in this game. No turnovers in this game either, so kind of just straight out who's going to be the better offense, I guess, that day. Well, JCU's was because they win 24-7 and outgain Heidelberg 317-105. Collins, 20 for 27, great efficiency, 176 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. From a game that didn't have too much offense to a game that had way too much offense for some people's liking, it's Denison at Wabash. A late first half field goal as time expired gave Denison a 17-14 lead, so we'll take it from there. As with 8:43 left, third quarter, it's Donovan Snyder with a 22-yard touchdown run. Wabash led the game 21-17 at this point. 5:53 left third quarter, Connor Grimes, a 21-yard touchdown run makes it 28-17 Wabash. The teams would trade touchdowns on either side of the third quarter break, leaving the Wabash lead at 11 points. 10:46 left in the fourth quarter. Denison's Trey Fabricini gets a 3-yard touchdown run to make the lead only 4 points for Wabash, 35-31. 8 minutes later, 2:08 left.
Fabricini time, nope. Dawkins is going to look downfield, has a lot of time, steps up, wings it out, got Marston all by himself. Marston getting all the way downfield, he's going to score! Marston, 65 yards, touchdown, Big Red, and they've got the lead with 2:08 to play.
But Wabash responds.
You could run it, but it hasn't been there. He's going to wing it, And it's caught. Penn Stoller, touchdown, Little Giants.
Penn Stoller, a 7-yard touchdown pass from Liam Thompson, gives Wabash back that lead, 42-38. So 45 seconds left to try to get the lead back here for Denison. Here's a big completion from their own 35-yard line. Drew Dawkins gets a pass completed to Billy Guzzo for 47 yards, and it takes it to the Wabash 18-yard line. They get an incompletion on the next play.
It's a pretty lightweight outside linebacker pass. That's where they're going. Nope. Touchdown, Denison! Billy Guzzo! 6 seconds left, and the Denison Big Red are going to beat the Little Giants on homecoming.
Billy Guzzo, an 18-yard touchdown pass from Dawkins with 6 seconds left, makes it 45-42. Here's the last-ditch attempt after a touchback for Wabash, and it is incomplete. They officially give the breakup here to Anthony Rooney of Denison. The final score, Denison 45, Wabash 42. Dawkins 359 total yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and an interception for Denison. And Liam Thompson for Wabash, 420 total yards, 3 passing touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions. What a cardiac game again for Wabash, but they've come on the losing side. They are just living dangerously left, right, and center this season. What else we got in the long list of regions 4 through 6?
Well, as usual, a lot of blowouts, but I will call out a few specific games. Albion beating UW Eau Claire is a pretty solid win for them. They continue to stay unbeaten and doing well out in Michigan. Let's see, we got Wilmington kind of quietly flying under the radar, winning games in the OAC. They haven't played any of the top level teams just yet, but they're getting the job done, so you got to give them credit for that. Baldwin Wallace knocks off Ohio Northern 35-31. Elsewhere, let's see, Gustavus Adolphus takes care of Concordia Moorhead in the MIAC. I messed that up in our week 3 preview, so my bad there. I had to study my Minnesota geography a little better. And then elsewhere, Aurora with 70 points. Yikes. That was a big win. And I have an aunt that lives in Buena Vista, California, Frank, but I know it's Buena Vista that was the team that beat Luther 52-49 in a crazy shootout game out there in the Midwest.
Buena Vista. Una? Yeah, believe it or not.
I can't even say it right.
I've tripped on it so many times in the last decade that I've become more national in the coverage. It's unbelievable that Buena Vista in this case. Yep, there you go. The little things you learn on Crunchtime, JB. I tell you, you got anything else?
Well, we did call out the Trine Center game. The Thunder had almost 5,000 people in attendance for that. That was a good win for them. Elsewhere, Cal Lutheran hangs on to defeat Pacific Lutheran in the Lutheran Bowl, or the Loot Bowl, I guess, 17-14. And then Redlands, man, 0-4. We both thought there was no way that was going to happen. CMS says, sorry, guys, and they get the win.
Let me down on that one for sure, but here's one thing that won't let you down. This was crunch time for week 4 of the 2022 Division III college football season. Yeah, that Redlands team, I don't know what to make of what's going on there, but that is a real disappointment out west. With things that aren't a disappointment, Linfield, obviously, still being Linfield, and they've got, I think, a clear road where they're going to be going. I just don't see anybody in the Northwest Conference really stepping up, it feels like. Although George Fox this season out in the West is a pretty decent surprise out in that direction. Wisconsin taking the week off, or most of Wisconsin at least, and in terms of the WEAC. We'll see where they go because they got some big games coming up in week 5. The South, we saw the tussle in Texas, and not much else, earth-shattering down there, but we're really gearing up here for excitement in the East and some excitement in the South, especially in the SAA race, I think, right now. I feel like the USA South may have just solved itself a little bit, but we'll also get some excitement in the ODAC. So the ODAC down there is going to be probably pretty good. But the Northeast, New York region, Pennsylvania region, down, the Mid-Atlantic into the South, that's where a lot of good stuff is going to be happening for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And we're going to be focusing on the Pennsylvania area. We'll tell you more about that via Twitter tomorrow, or actually maybe later today if you're watching us on Wednesday, about what our coverage plans are for this Saturday. So stay tuned for that. But we're going to focus on kind of the Pennsylvania region because there's some exciting stuff going on in that state this Saturday. Having said that, JB, it's time for your MVPs, and there's one person here that I'm definitely not surprised to see here, and we heard a lot about him on Around the Nation and on that podcast on Monday. Why not hear a little bit more about Spencer McMillian?
I kind of try to avoid doing the same thing as the Around the Nation game ball selections, but both McMillian and on the defensive side, Johnny Smith-Walker they had just too big games to ignore. So obviously McMillian with the 43 rush, 5 touchdown game against Anna Maria, who was undefeated going into that game. That's an impressive win for the Coast Guard, who's really starting to turn some things around. Smith-Walker he forced a fumble that really kind of started the whole turn of the game. Now, there were some other players out there that had maybe had more tackles or interceptions or this and that. But in the biggest game in the country, this guy made probably the biggest play in the game, at least early on, that started the Crusaders' basically snowball effect of piling up some points, starting with defense. And as I said earlier, my special teams pick, KJ Miller could be an easy choice here. But I liked the fact that Tyler England's punt return really put Huntington in control early. So even when they were struggling a bit later on, they had that cushion, and they really needed that, which ultimately I think helped them hold off a strong Belhaven team.
So, JB, let's take a look at something here. I've called up on my screen here, and we'll put it up on our general screen for everybody to see. The top 10 right now in Division 3, according to D3Football.com's top 25. After everything shook out here, it's North Central, Mount Union, Whitewater, Mary Hardin-Baylor, Trinity, Texas in your top 5. Noticeably, Whitewater is only 2 points ahead of Mary Hardin-Baylor, which is interesting when you think of everything that's occurred right now in this whole conundrum of how to rank teams. Whitewater did beat Mary Hardin-Baylor, but there was a close call now for third place after this, and Mary Hardin-Baylor did get a first place vote, presumably the first place vote that was Hardin-Simmons' first place vote. But then where did Trinity, Texas's first place vote go to? I'm not sure, because that just disappeared overnight for no apparent reason. How would you rank the top 5 right now if you had to rank them?
I think I'd probably go with this similar ranking. Whitewater has the win over Crew, so you got to give them the edge there. Trinity at 5. They did beat Wheaton, which was an impressive win, but it was a close call. Yeah, I wouldn't really shift things around too much. Mount Union still looks good, but they're relatively untested. They'll probably be untested until the playoffs. And we didn't see Whitewater play this past weekend, so they're not going anywhere. I really don't have any arguments against this. The thing I think is funny, though, Frank, is that how many games have we seen this season that have been really big marquee games end 28-4? I guess you could even throw Salve and Rowan in there, too, but it's the same exact score.
Yep.
Yeah, same exact score that we saw with the Crew and Whitewater. Saw it again this past weekend with St. John's and Bethel. What I'm a little surprised at is that Bethel is still all the way down at 12.
I was just going to go there. Let's take a look at a little bit deeper here at 6 through 10, St. John's, Linfield, Johns Hopkins, La Crosse, and Hardin-Simmons. Normally if you beat a team above you, you will get at least remotely close, if not go ahead of them if you have the equal number of losses in that situation. Here, Bethel doesn't get that propulsion up to that point. And their loss to Platteville, while I understand it's a bad loss with a team that's unranked now, at the same time, we learn that Rosti most likely is the reason why they lost the game and maybe won this game, and he's back in the lineup. So, do voters know enough about what's going on there? I start to wonder aloud about, that injury scenario, what it means. Now, listen, if a voter wanted to say to me, look, here's why I wouldn't put them ahead of them, it shows me that they lack depth in a position that's important in football. But then how many backup quarterbacks do we know about across the country on teams? You don't know anything about them until you need them, pretty much, in Division III. So, we saw it with Union. Who was Donovan Piccatti's backup? Sherman, tried to keep things together there. It didn't work. I think it's a little unfair what happened to Bethel's ranking here overall, and that an adjustment can be made. We've seen it happen in college basketball polls in Division I before, where the major point guard who was out on injury, he'll be back for the tournament, and suddenly does that affect how they seed that player? Yes, it does. Usually, is what we've heard in the past, that they do watch that stuff, and so why shouldn't pollsters watch it and rank accordingly? Because to me, a ranking list like this is what the current assessment of these teams are. Now, it doesn't mean that next week number 18 is automatically beating number 25, because any given Saturday and maybe a matchup will create some kind of problem for 18 against 25, or maybe the home team deserves a certain advantage. But at least it gives you this perspective of, right now, here's how I think the teams are in the country. A Rosti-filled Bethel team is going to be a heck of a lot better than a Rosti deficit Bethel team. So I don't agree with that part of it. As you point out, they should be in the top 10. They should be closer to St. John's, if not ahead of St. John's ultimately. And St. John's got buoyed a little bit there, I think, somehow by that Whitewater win. But since that win, River Falls almost took them down. If they had another 5 minutes in that game, they may have. And then this Bethel game. So I don't know what the real St. John's is necessarily either. Last thoughts on that?
Well, I was just I felt a little relieved, because I'm pretty sure I picked Bethel to win the MIAC in preseason. And so that pick looks a lot better now than it did after St. John's beat Whitewater in week 1. And I was like, oh man, was I way off? But I had a feeling that St. John's might struggle a little bit this season, just given some of the losses to graduation and how they kind of snuck by a few teams last year. But yeah, ultimately, a lot of times what we see in these rankings, the 2021 resume is still sort of bolstered in, and at least I think the pollsters are doing the best they can given all these upsets and all these kinds of topsy-turvy results. But yeah, the Bethel thing is still a little bit of a head scratcher, especially when everybody who votes probably knows about Rosti being out in the Platteville game.
Or at least they should have known, I think, respectfully to everybody. So anyway, that's that. We've got some big games we're going to be previewing on Friday. We'll also have an interview. We'll tell you what our coverage plan is. As I said, on Wednesday, a little bit later on in the day, we will officially break the news on where I will be and where our focus will be on Twitter, etc. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And final thoughts on week 4 going into week 5 here, my friend. Again, while the preview we gave kind of was like, boy, it's tough to find games to even predict. We ended up with a lot of exciting games here, especially those 17-point turnarounds. Do you see that becoming a trend? I mean, do you see these, this ambivalence of who wins week to week turning into, hey, no 21-point lead is safe, or whatever else it might be out there?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a D3 football coach, I'm using a lot of these games as examples of saying it isn't over until it's over. That Denison-Wabash game being the perfect example. I thought that Wabash had it in the bag, and then all of a sudden a 47-yard pass, and the game is still on, and if there's still time on the clock, you got a shot. So same thing with Salve. I mean, maybe they got a break with the pass interference call in the end zone, but that stuff happens, and hey. That's football. The only last thing I'll conclude on, Frank, I would like to say thanks to I've gotten a few DMs and texts from people wishing us well down here in Florida. We got Hurricane Ian coming up. I have a feeling I should be fine to log on Friday morning. I'll let you know if not somehow. But for anyone who has friends, family on the west coast of Florida, particularly in the Tampa area, that looks like it's going to be a rough one. So we'll send all our thoughts and prayers out to everyone. Here in Orlando, we're a lot more landlocked. We should be okay, although some of the models do have the hurricane running right through the middle of our state. So we'll have to, knock on wood, hope for the best, and we'll see what happens. Oh, Ellie thinks now there's somebody at the door.
Well, listen, you could possibly do a first for us and be our resident Jim Cantori and be out there holding on to something while you're, on the show with us on Friday live, and it'd be great, I think.
And outside with my poncho and
doing God only knows what in the trailer.
Small world random story. The producer for Jim Cantori is a buddy of mine, Steve Pederak from Hobart. He was a couple years ahead of me. Played ice hockey, and I ran into him when I lived in LA for a little while before he moved back east to Atlanta. Hey, we're statesmen. Hey, oh yeah, look at this. I got a little something from. We'll be talking about that a little more on come Friday, because big Liberty League game on Saturday. We'll see what happens.
Hobart, Ithaca, is that what you're referring to, possibly?
Yes, indeed. One of at least a dozen really important conference games that are happening in Week 5. It's going to be a great weekend of football.
And we're going to predict them, and I'm going to, like I said, have a couple big games definitely to attend. Maybe 2, not just 1. Because why stop at 1? Why not get back to 20 games this season in terms of travel? Wow.
Yeah, you're already on your way.
Yep, we're 7 down, 13 to go just to tie it. But anyway, folks, we'll see you on Friday, as predictions will be more important than ever. Not really for us, but for the teams that are playing the games. So tune in. We'll see you then.